Hello everyone, it is Ozilek back with another prediction video. It is Sunday. I usually do these on a Saturday, but I thought that there might be another Ipsos poll tonight out. Obviously, I knew there was not going to be another news poll because one came out early on Friday, and they're going to do the last one next Friday. But apart from that news poll, not many things have come out. I will explain things that have come out in the last few days. Since the MRP polling, which I did a whole video on. You can go and watch that video if you want to hear me talk about the MRP polling. I will touch on it a little bit, but I won't do any kind of full analysis or discussion of that in this video. But it was quite interesting stuff. So we might just go over all of the sort of key seats and talk about what's been happening with them. So the seat of Bass, the Labour Party was ahead on the MRP polling. The betting sites, pretty much everyone is expecting this to fall to Labour. Jackie Lambie did preference Bridget Archer over the Labor candidate, which annoyed actually the candidate for Jackie Lambie Network on Bass, and I think he dropped out of the campaign because of it. So maybe that will help Bridget Archer a little bit. It's one of those ones that I don't know. It could still stay with the coalition, so I'm not sure about Bass. But most people are expecting it's going to go to Labor. Chisholm. So the MRP polling gave this to Labor. Most people are expecting that at this point in time it's going to go to Labor, but Scott Morrison, I think, visited Chisholm the other day. I saw him with Gladys Liu, so he's obviously trying to sandbag that seat pretty hard. I think he might have put some money towards some kind of project or something, but I think Labor did that too. I think it's like the suburban rail loop or something. I think it goes through Chisholm. I don't know. Boothby, this is one that most people are giving to Labor at this stage. The MIP polling had Labor ahead. Everyone kind of expects Labor to take this seat. Higgins, this is one that the MIP gave a surprise result for Labor. It's a sort of inner city seat. Earlier in the campaign, it was looking like the Greens could take Higgins, but Labor are now ahead on betting and all the prediction sites. Braddon is one that the MIP polling actually gave to the coalition, whilst most prediction and betting sites are saying is going to go to Labor. Reid is another one that after Fiona Martin's slip up, and also that MIP polling, which gave it the Labor a lead of 56 to 44. Almost everybody is expecting that seat is going to go to Labor now. The seat of Swan, that is also a seat which most people are expecting will go to Labor, and the MRP polling and some recent WA polling said it was Labor's court. Longman was 50-50 on the MRP polling. It depends on the prediction websites, because if you go on all Aramum, Nanaram, Interada, it's got Labor slightly ahead in the seat of Longman, but if you go on to a forecast, it is Labor have only got about a 40% chance, and I think it's this site factors more in the Queensland bias towards Labor. So this site doesn't expect that Labor will pick up Longman, but it does expect that Labor, oh well, still under 50% in Brisbane, even the Labor and the Greens combined. And then Leichhardt is like 40%. Yeah, Leichhardt is one that got 51.49 on the MRP chart. Like Longman, it's one that the Labor Party are definitely looking at and think that they have a good chance in, and the chances have seemed to have gotten higher further into the campaign. So that's one to look at. Robertson, most people are giving this to Labor, and I believe that they were ahead in Robertson on the MRP polling. I think it was only 51.49 though. Casey, so the A forecast only has the coalition with a 50% chance to win Casey, but this website has them with a 55% chance. So it's sort of on a knife edge, and that was a seat that where the coalition were ahead on the MRP polls by 52.48. Dixon, most people expect that it's going to stay with the coalition. Even if Frydenberg loses his seat, most people expect Dutton will keep his. The seat of Deakin, most people are not expecting that to go anywhere, and that's what the MIP polling said. It's going to stay with the coalition. Brisbane, I've already talked about. Lindsay, I think it was 50-50 on the MRP polling, and it really depends on which site you look at for. Like on here, it has Lindsay at 63.37. On here, it has Lindsay actually ahead 56.2. So both of the prediction websites are giving it to Lindsay, but I know they're still behind. It's still behind on the betting sites. They're still paying out $2.45 for Labor winning Lindsay on the betting sites. So they're not as convinced for some reason. Latrobe, that's not in reach. Pierce, Labor were ahead on a recent poll, as well as they were ahead on the MRP polling in Pierce. That is one that most people expect Labour are going to take. Kooyong. Kooyong's the big interesting one that I think we've been talking about for a bit now. There's been some polls which are showing Josh Frydenberg is in dire straits in Kooyong, and the betting sites have narrowed dramatically. I think they're almost 50-50. On here, it gives Frydenberg a 60% chance of winning back his seat, but on Iterata, this site, he only has a 33 in 100 chance to win back his seat. So it depends who you go to on that. But things do not look very good for him. There has been talk that recently in the campaign he's gathered some momentum and strength. I'm not sure about that. We will just have to see on Saturday. Flinders, I believe, was quite close. I think it was 52-48 to the coalition on the MIP polling. But apart from that, people aren't expecting Flinders to go anywhere. I don't think Flinders has like Labour on a 30% chance, and on here it's probably something similar. Yeah, like 30%. So I don't think Flinders is going to go anywhere. Hasluck, this was looking competitive for a while, but now things are pointing to the coalition keeping it. Ryan is looking competitive for both Labour and the Greens. That's one that could go either way, and that's what the MRP polling said. It was 50-50. The seat of Banks, this is one that Labour Party looks stronger in than they were earlier, and this website has Banks up 50-50 to go to Labour, whilst this website here has Banks at actually a 60% chance of winning that seat. So the odds for Banks definitely have shortened in the last couple of days, I've noticed on the betting sites. So more and more people are thinking that seat could go to Labour. The seat of Sturt, it was 50-50 on the MRP polling, so that's definitely in play, but most people expect it's going to stay with the coalition. Monash isn't going anywhere. Benelong got 50-50 on the MRP polling. This website says that I think it's about a 66% chance it will remain with the coalition, whilst A Forecasts puts it at roughly 50-50. Benelong really could go either way. I know there was a 10 News poll, which I may have talked about last video, which had Labour on 55-45, but that poll might have been released deliberately in order to sort of wake up the coalition. I don't know, make them fight for Benelong and make them realise that that seat is going to be tight. Menzies isn't going anywhere. Bonner's not going anywhere. Goldstein is looking to be an independent win. There's been a series of polls where the independent has been ahead in the seat of Goldstein. So that's absolutely one in play, and it was a loss for Tim Wilson in the MRP polling. The seat of Herbert, not anywhere. No Petrie, no Ford, no Flynn. North Sydney, it's looking like the two independents in New South Wales do not have as great of a chance as the independents in Victoria. That's what it seems like at the moment. Could be wrong. At the moment, North Sydney is looking like more of a contest between Labor and the coalition rather than an independent and the coalition. And it's very, very tight at about 57-43 according to the MRP polling. I think there was a poll a month or two ago which had Labor ahead in North Sydney, so we've returned to that. The seat of Page, I don't think it's going anywhere. Tagney, not in play anymore. Hughes, there is talk of an independent still in play, and the betting sites have got it about 50-50 surprisingly, but the MRP polling did not show it. Wentworth, I've really talked about that, similar case to North Sydney, and we'll see if there's any more seats that are worth talking about out of these. McKellar is another kind of story. There's a chance an independent could win it. Gray, there's a chance there. Curtin, there's a chance there. All the way up in Nichols, there's a chance there of an independent. I don't know if that's going to happen. Really don't know. And I think that is mostly about it when it comes to the coalition seats. So if we have a look at the Labour seats, honestly, there's really not that much to talk about. There's probably two seats that are worth talking about. Gilmore seems to be staying with Labour. Hunter, MRP polling had Labour at a lead of 60-40, but there was a poll out yesterday which had the Labour Party ahead, only 51-49. That was a Sky News poll. We don't know where that's from. I will also state that that same polling set had the coalition ahead 57-43 in Lindsay. So that's probably another thing that's keeping Lindsay sort of on that $2.45 at the moment in the betting market. So I should have mentioned that before, but I forgot. But yeah, the only seats that I think are really worth talking about are the seats of Corangamite, which was 50-50 on the MRP polling, and the coalition are still targeting the seat. They think they can pick it up because of Daniel Andrews hate and lockdown hate. And the other seat is McEwen. It was 55-45 to Labor on the MRP polling, but it's been mentioned a lot recently, and the odds have shortened for the coalition in the seat of McEwen. So at the moment, their three best bets are McEwen, Corangamite, and Hunter, and everything else seems to have slipped away for them. I've heard Greenway mentioned briefly, and there's always the talk of Parramatta, but I think it's probably only likely that they'll probably pick up one or two if they're really lucky of those seeds. The last election where there wasn't any pickup at all for the person who lost the election was, I believe, the 1983 election. So there's always at least one seat, most of the time lost by the winning party. So my money would probably be on Corangamite at this point, but Hunter is an option, Greenway is an option, McEwen is an option, Parramatta is an option. Those are the ones I've heard talked about. Lions at the moment, I think, is out of play. The MRP polling pretty much said that as much, but it could be wrong. Like the MRP polling, as I've said, has to be taken with a grain of salt, so we might see a surprise there. Rightio. So I think next time you see this, I'm going to update this map so it's actually each of these squares is actually over the top of each individual seat instead of this thing where it's state by state. It's probably cleaner looking this way, and it's definitely easier for me to set up. But I think it'd be better, if I actually had it so that you could see every individual seed as I mark them, and that way I can do a more precise prediction rather than just like saying, oh, one or two in this day, one or two in that day. I mean, that's easier for me, but it's not. Labor or the Greens have four real options in Queensland. There's Ryan, Brisbane, Longman, and Leichhardt. It's looking likely that Labor or the Greens will pick up at least two of those seats. That's what the opinion polls are pointing to with a lead of 54-46 nationally. I believe Labor are hoping that they can pick up two seats in Queensland. In South Australia, I believe it's only going to be Boothby. I think if they manage to get Sturt, that would be extremely lucky of them. In Western Australia, Swan and Pearce, I don't think they're going to pick up Hasluck. Things are not pointing to them picking up Hasluck at the moment. In New South Wales, which is the most interesting state, at the moment there's Reid, Robertson, and probably one more seat. It might be Lindsay, it might be Benelong, it might be Banks, but I think three seats seems pretty sensible. The coalition is going to win in Hughes. I don't think that independent has much of a chance, but I could be wrong. And Zali Steger will keep her seat. At the moment, things are trending to look like the independents won't pick up North Sydney or Wentworth, but we had like some mixed polling on that, so it really could go either way. So I'm not going to give the independents any extra seats in New South Wales. In Victoria, there's talk of Higgins, there's talk of Chisholm, there's talk of perhaps Casey. I think it's smart if we give Labor one seat in Victoria. Why? Because I think there's a good chance Labor could lose Corangamite or McEwen. Casey probably won't happen, and even Chisholm or Higgins are both sort of like, I don't know. So I think one seat in Victoria is more than enough. Net one seat in Victoria is more than enough for the Labor Party. In Tasmania, I don't know about that. I really don't know. They were only ahead in Bass 51-49. I think I will leave Tasmania for now. I don't think I think this might be the election where nothing happens in Tasmania. This might be just the one where there's no big swing in Tasmania. I know there's usually Bass just swings everywhere, but this might be the one. So my prediction the other day was 77. My prediction with the new news poll released has gone up to 78 for the Labor Party. That news poll has put the Labor Party in a good position. You would have expected by now that news poll might have narrowed. It hasn't. It stayed 54-46. That's not to say that next week we can't get a 52-48 to Labor, because especially if Labor doesn't have a very good week, that is absolutely a possibility. But things are looking very good for the Labor Party at the moment, and my prediction is actually less Labor's favour than some of these prediction websites. So a forecast has Labor at this point getting 53-47, and it has them winning 82 seats. On Armoranium Interrata, it has Labour with a 80% chance of an outright majority, 92% chance of them getting more seats than the coalition, and a median again of 82. I think things are going to be closer than what the polls are saying, that what these prediction websites are saying. If there's going to be any more seats, Labor is going to win. It's going to be Casey, it's going to be Benelong, it's going to be Banks, it's going to be Leichhardt, it's going to be Longman. You got a handful of seats which would absolutely could come into play. Labor could win. I think Labor's got at least 76 in the bag at this point in time. That's what everything's pointing to. And the only way that could be incorrect is if there is another massive polling error, which, it could happen. It could just be even more quiet Australians this time. Oh, I almost forgot the two independents in Victoria, which the coalition is definitely looking like that's going to happen. So that's why I was wondering why the coalition has so many seats. But I think this is a bit more than some of these websites are predicting. They think they're going to go down to 60. I think 65 is about right of a number. My predictions haven't actually changed too much over the campaign so far. I think they were originally at 75, then they stayed at 75, then they went up to 77, now they're up to 78. I've got this conservative prediction at the moment. Curious to see what the poll is going to say this week. Sometime this week, I am going to do a live stream with Swan. I will be uploading a video later on to specify exactly what time that is going to be and what day that's going to be. But we are just going to be talking about everything and anything. And of course, you can ask any questions or state any comments that you might have about this whole thing. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And I almost forgot to talk about the Senate. We got to do that. So I was actually watching the ABC a couple of days ago, and Glenn Drury and somebody else, I apologize that I forgot your name, were on the ABC, and they were talking about the Senate. What they said was, in Queensland, Labor is almost certainly going to win 2 seats and the coalition win 1. Then the coalition is going to win 2. And then this last seat will be between the coalition, One Nation, and they mentioned, surprisingly, the Palmer United Party. I don't think the Palmer United Party has a chance. Personally, they're going to get about half of the votes that Pauline Hanson will get, and they won't get as many of the preferences. I think it's going to go to One Nation. I would put money on it that it would go to One Nation. New South Wales, same shit. That's never going to change. South Australia, look, it's going to be either 3 Labor or it's going to be Nick Xenophon. At the moment, I'm tipping Xenophon, and that's what the guys on the ABC said as well. But we don't know. He could just completely bomb out for all we know. There was polls saying that he was doing all right. I don't know. Western Australia, at this point in time, I think that the coalition are going to win 3, Labor 2, and the Greens 1. I don't think that's changing. Victoria, I don't know. I'm going to leave that blank for now. Tasmania, I believe Jackie Lambie will get her running mate elected. That is what the people on the TV said as well. Northern Territory is not going to change. ACT, David Pocock, he has a chance. I don't know if he'll be able to beat out the coalition. I don't think it's going to happen, but a lot of people are saying that he has a good chance. I don't think it's going to happen, though. Just quickly, I'm just going to mention that apparently the Labour Party are thinking their Senate seat might be a risk, I guess, from David Pocock, if it's like a threat to like the left versus the right. I feel like the Labour Party will have almost a quota in their own right, and I don't see them losing a Senate seat. I think that's going to be probably between this Mr. David Pocock, who they've been calling a teal independent of the Senate, interestingly enough. I think it's going to be between him and the Liberal Party. And this last seat in Victoria is really, I don't know, it's really questionable. I've been wondering about this for the last couple of weeks. I think at the moment, I think it's going to go to Labor. I'm going to give that to Labor. So this configuration would be pretty good for Labor. They could pass legislation with either Xenophon, Lambie, or One Nation. That's 38 seats between Labor and the Greens, and the coalition. And that would also mean that Labor and the Greens have a blocking majority, so it would not be a good Senate for the coalition. But on this kind of result, there's no way the coalition would win. If Labor are winning, if the lefts are winning a total of 4 seats in Victoria, Labor have almost certainly won the election in the lower house. But there is talk of One Nation and maybe even Palmer having a relatively high vote in Victoria. So it really depends maybe where they preference, and I think it's it's, somewhat likely that the coalition is just going to get 3 seats in Victoria. And if this happens, this would be not such a bad Senate for the Labor Party. It means they can't just pass stuff with just Xenophon. They need either all of Lambie or all of One Nation. And then if it ends up like this, then well, it's pretty much the same story, except they just have to rely on Jackie Lambie to pass legislation. So this is absolutely workable for the Labor Party. Any less than this, and it's going to a stage where the Labor Party are going to be wanting to go to an early half Senate election or possibly even a double dissolution. If the coalition wins this seat here, uh, which I don't think is going to happen, Labor Party with the Greens will only have 37 and Lambie 38, and they could easily just get blocked by the coalition in One Nation, and they won't want to do that. So the Senate will decide whether or not the Labor Party will want to do something as drastic as go to an early half Senate election. But at the moment, this is my prediction, and that's all I have time for today. So goodbye, everybody.